we are going to discuss women's rights in India based on tradition and what is present in modern society, as there is a lot of confusion. As per Vedic text, an Indus region society before 21st century believed giving a share in father's property to girls or daughters other than boys, depending on financial condition of her father in Hindus. There was no limit on jewelry as Sridhana, which is gold, or a security to a girl child from her father, and there was no upper limit on it. Girls will not inherit land, whether they have brothers or not. If they do not have brothers, then land of their father will go to his brothers or his nephews, as in those days there were joint families. There was no rule on how much maximum but a decent share. Example, 2000 years ago it is written as 2000 panas in the middle class, which was a decent share, say around 20 to 30% of father's property will be distributed among daughters. This property of a woman will remain with her for her use. She was not supposed to hand it over to her in-laws or husband. Only in crisis her husband can use this for the welfare of his kids. There are many texts which clearly defines the traditions at that time which was being followed for more than 3000 years, and there were enhancements frequently. A daughter can visit her parents on occasions, for example during festival seasons or during delivery or in some crisis. She will be responsible equally before her marriage, and she will be enjoying all the benefits before her marriage. Whenever after marriage she will be visiting, she will be treated very nicely and with respect by her family and brothers. Kautilya has also rewritten in his writing about these traditions. Eldest brother who will share more responsibility will get 10% more share by his father. If father has no money or in debt, no dowry in the form of jewelry is required for daughter. Dowry was not given to anyone in that case, neither to daughter nor to son. Land was not costly that time, and it was used mainly for agricultural purposes. For violation of rules and tradition, there was a penalty by law. Parents were also supposed to follow the tradition themselves at that time. Those days there were joint families in India, and traditions were pre-written and pre-known, and every generation used to follow those traditions. Whether it is a boy or a girl, the traditions were clear from the childhood itself, and a commitment given to a daughter or a son from childhood will be followed without any manipulation. The rules were not based on gender, the rules were not based on emotions or requirement of a particular child. It was predefined, and it was being followed very well in all the societies across the Indus region, mainly among Hindus. After some time, traditions changed due to influence from other outsiders. After marriage, a daughter will not be entitled for other form of property like land in those traditions, irrespective of whether she has a brother or not. If there is no male child or son in the family, then a girl's father's brothers or males, say nephew, who has been living with her father shall take possession of his property. In those days, birth rate was high and survival rate was low. Therefore, 90% households there used to be a male child born, and he will be inheriting the lands, and he will be take the responsibility. Lands were mainly for agricultural purposes, and family income was dependent on these lands. Those days till 19th century there were joint families, and responsibilities was only with brothers and nephews after a daughter's marriage, and she will share only Sridhana. But in today's society in India, since last 2 generations, birth rate is gone down and survival rate is up, because of which due to only 1 or 2 kids in every household, there are many families who do not have a male child. These days there are nuclear families, so more than 30% families are having only girl child or daughters. But in these households they do not follow traditions, as they give their property to their daughters instead of nephews. There they follow modern tradition. In today's society in India, if a family has girls and boys both, then that time they do not give any property rights to daughters, referring traditions after her marriage, and they keep on changing their stand. But before her marriage, they will talk about equality in rights and responsibilities. So basically, we have a lot of confusion, and we do what suits us. That time they forget that another person in the family, say her uncle suppose, who do not have a boy baby, is giving his property to his daughters, which is not as per tradition, because as per tradition he should give it to nephews. In ancient times rules were predefined, but in modern times parents keep changing their stand. Sometimes they say they will give equal share to all kids and all kids should bear equal responsibility. After few years they change their stand due to some or the other reason. In modern days, few of the daughters share responsibilities even if they have brothers, but few of the daughters put their hands up while taking the responsibilities. That time they refer tradition. So basically, there is a lot of confusion and people are choosing what suits them and keep changing their stand. In modern days, daughters are rarely going to their maika or parents' house due to their job commitments, or neither parents or brothers are willing them to visit. This was not the tradition before. Very few people have actually seen Vedic texts, which actually tells real traditions. Since last two generations, they have not seen Vedic texts. Last two generations are uttering what they have heard traditions in distorted form from their elders. These days, 21st century property rights are equal for daughters and sons in Hindus, but responsibilities are not written or not being followed. Property laws are based on religion in India. Practically, property should be based on responsibilities and it should be pre-communicated, and there should be a clarity in the society with a lot of balance between tradition and modernity, and it should be communicated at the childhood, at the same time should be followed. Relatives, society and mothers sometimes forces daughters to give up their rights which was being promised by her parents, either by emotional blackmailing or telling if she will take her share of property she will be considered as greedy, or it is considered as a dowry. What about dowry given to sons these days, as India is a rich, prosperous country? There were different forms of marriages in tradition, like Brahma marriage, which is arranged marriage in today's days, Arsh, Gandharva, which is love marriage, etc. As mentioned in Vedic texts, this is also modern society is not aware of in India. There are many things in tradition which needs to be understood and rewritten by Vedic scholars or scholars who wants a balance between the society. Otherwise, there will be a chaos in the society and unsatisfaction, and people will not be able to follow the tradition well. With time, every society needs change and issues needs to be addressed with discussions among scholars. Not talking about it or keeping people silent on the name of gender or caste or culture will bring the system in a completely bad shape. Social issues and social system in India or in Indus Valley region means nearby countries needs to be discussed and upgraded based on modern times. But at the same time, the culture or tradition of 5000 years needs a proper understanding, as we have addressed and discussed these issues better, and rules were clear and defined better in the past. But in past 100 years, there is a lot of confusion between modernity and tradition, and people are manipulating and using it as per what suits them. Today, rules are manipulated by both a daughter's parents' side as well as her in-laws' side as well as her side, depending on case to case and person to person basis, depending on a person's ethics. Same is true for men. Sometimes all the responsibilities are on a son and his sisters do not share any of the responsibilities referring tradition, but while taking share in the property, they talk of modern rules and rights. Sometimes responsibilities are neither on son or daughter, as parents are prosperous and healthy, but not to give anything to their daughter, they show that the son is taking the responsibility. Sometimes sons do not take responsibility, still they expect complete control of the property. Again, it depends on case to case and person to person basis. So a discussion is required for social reforms and a change is required in the society. If a family has no boy child and only girl children, say daughters, still they could not have given their daughters their share of property other than jewelry as per our culture or tradition in olden days. Remaining land and other assets in that case, when there is no son, will go to immediate family, either to father's brother or nephews, as those days they were joint families and parents' responsibility was also being taken care by their brothers or nephews that time. If there were sons in the family, eldest brother who will share more responsibility will get 10% more share by father. If father has no money or in debt, no dowry in the form of jewelry is required. Dowry was given to a girl to give her a decent share. Sons were also given major share in father's property with major responsibilities, and it was for all the generations to be followed and communicated properly. No changing of stand was frequent or required. Division of property was not based on emotions of parents or requirement of somebody. It was clearly defined and known to all the kids from the beginning. Violation of these rules and adequate compensation was decided by the government in those days. But in modern days, things have changed a lot, and there are people with double standards. Before 21st century till mid 90s, when India was still not so prosperous, land rates were not so high. Similar rules by society were observed but in a little distorted form. After mid 90s, when India became prosperous and land rates were booming, income and pension is high, the selfish people based on their requirement distorted social rules much more than before, irrespective of gender, and it depends based on case to case and person to person. Now, dowry is given sometimes out of pressure from in-laws of the girls, or dowry is given to sons. I call it dowry given to son, as if the property is given completely to a son, this should also be considered as dowry. Rarely actual purpose of dowry is fulfilled. The real purpose of dowry in those days was to give a decent share to daughters from her father's property as a form of affection, and in case father is poor, dowry was not required. In-laws or husbands had no control on her Stridhana. Before her marriage, she was equally responsible and equally committed for the family. But in modern times, things have changed. This needs a proper balance between modernity and tradition. Due to their selfish reasons, due to ethics of a person, things change and there is no proper balance between modernity and tradition. Thank you.